When I picked up Ozymandias out of High Voltage Overdrive, I did not expect this card to rock as hard as he does. I got back to rank 69, climbing about 50 SP with Ozymandias. Yes, that one. Ozymandias is a 5/9 with an ongoing ability that gives your rocks +3 power. Now, because he is a fairly linear scaler, he actually, I think, compares best to cards like Ajax and Ronan and Darkhawk and Devil Dinosaur, except he's a little bit spread out across lanes as opposed to being big in his lane. But I think that is the archetype of card that he fits into if you're trying to understand what he is. So in the modern world of Marvel Snap, what that means is you need a deck that's going to cover for his weaknesses. And initially, I thought this would be just, I'm going to put Ozzy in Supergiant, because Supergiant wants to be playing a 2/5, that's Rhino, wants to be playing a 3/8, that's Debris. But what actually ended up happening was the preeminent, or one of the preeminent Supergiant gamers that I know, Game-R, sent me a list that was like, actually, don't even play Supergiant. Just do this other stuff instead, and it is honest to God probably better, outside of specifically the matchups where Supergiant herself is particularly helpful, like against Star-Lord and Mr. Negative. And I climbed 50 SP with this deck. It's Ozymandias, and it actually works. Now, look, I don't know what you're thinking, but I've got a pretty good guess. You're asking the same question I asked when I first saw this list from Gamer. KM, why the hell aren't you just playing Supergiant? And largely it's because you just don't have enough ways to get rocks if you aren't playing something that is going to generate them in your hand, like the card Sandstorm, in order to make sure that you are actually going to have enough payoff for Ozymandias. In much the same way as there's like a Devil Dinosaur package, there's a Darkhawk package, there's a Ronan package, right? This guy has his own package, and while yes, Debris and of course Rhino are very good, you need a third thing that is going to give you rocks, preferably multiple rocks. I did not feel like the answer to that question was Mole Man, and even if I did, he kind of runs into the same thing as Sandstorm does, which is you are mostly going to be doing that on 5. A way this deck kind of tended to play out was you would Sandstorm on 5 and then really only play one of the rocks alongside an Ozzy on 6. There was definitely some confusion when I was playing it as to like what specifically I was trying to do at any given time, picking and choosing through what the deck was able to output. But largely, I will say this, I did not feel like I missed Supergiant in a meaningful way. In fact, not having Supergiant meant that I was pretty okay into other Supergiant decks. Of course, the other thing you could be thinking looking at this deck list is, I get it, it's a Gambit deck. And yes, it is. That's the other thing that you're gaining over the traditional Supergiant package, is Gambit providing an injection of power that this deck is actually pretty reasonably set up to use. There's a lot of people doing similar stuff as this right now, and Gambit is quite good in those pseudo mirrors. This was definitely helpful to me on my climb. Largely, what this deck is trying to do is ask when exactly and specifically I actually need Supergiant. If I just have priority the entire game, why do I even care? And that's basically the premise here. You're going to be playing for priority the entire game. It is a full prio game plan here. All you want is priority. When you have priority, you do the stuff Supergiant does. You Cosmo their stuff, you Negasonic their stuff, you play big guys, and that's really just always gonna be good enough. It is very difficult for Marvel Snap to ever be in a state where something with this level of interaction and power is actively bad, and it was quite solid for me. Moving on to the card-by-card breakdown. Now, first up is Spider-Ham, who is a pretty solid card, but generally nothing special. You really just want any disruptive one-drop. An Iceman would be fine here too, but in the absence of things like Supergiant, you're really just looking for other ways to take cards out of your opponent's hand effectively. Like, your job is to prevent them from building up a game plan that can run you over. Gambit can blow their stuff up, Negasonic blows their stuff up, Cosmo removes text, and this card removes text. So you're really just overloading on that disruption and then relying on like Ozymandias and a 2-5 and a 3-8 with potential upside. Sometimes that 3-8's a 3-14, sometimes that 2-5 is a 2-8 thanks to Ozzy. That's really what the deck is built around, is dragging your opponents down into the mud, and this is a way to do that. Nightcrawler's especially relevant in a deck like this because you are very often like stuck on whether or not you're going to have enough space in a lane. And so if you have to use a space on something like a rock, having a Nightcrawler for that fourth space, something that would happen a lot is you would play Iron Patriot and like follow it up with Rhino and Nightcrawler. And it's like, that is exceedingly helpful in allowing you to put points in lanes without actually committing to them, because your board space will be stressed by a deck like this. Here's the thing. I know I said the reason we're not a Supergiant deck is so we can facilitate this card. It also sucks. Like you are, stop being greedy with this card, and that's one thing. The other thing is, like, I can't tell you how much I wish this card was 1 energy cheaper. I realize that's probably really pushing it with Victoria hand, but like, this card is so difficult to fit into the way this deck actually wants to play, which is to say, it is, I think, a necessity if you want to be an Ozymandias deck. In much the same way as you play Korg and Rock Slide in your Darkhawk deck, even though Terrax is the good one, this is your Rock Slide, so to speak. And that's kind of just where you're at with this archetype, where it's like, the problem you run into with Sandstorm is one of play pattern. You want to play it as late as you can, but you can't play it on 5 because 5 is your best chance to play an Ozzy. And if you play Sandstorm on 5 and then play Ozzy on 6, you have effectively Sandstorm for 1 rock, which is like, okay, you're not even doing what this card even wants you to do. It's notable. It's still like good. Like, I don't want to sit here and act like this card isn't good. The power output is actually probably some of the best in the deck, but the play pattern stuff, you will feel it when you play it. I don't really think I need to explain Iron Patriot in your deck that plays a 3-8 and a 2-5. It's just absolutely excellent, and it is part of what allows you to sort of splash in the Gambit package. An Iron Patriot usually will be a 5 or 6. It can be a 4, but usually it'll be that. And if it is a 4, you could supplement it with the Sandstorm, and it will allow Gambit to just be on. You are playing as few Gambit enablers as possible on the theory that you really just need one of them to hit, and Iron Patriot is one of them. Scarlet Witch is a little bit of a flex slot. Now, Gamer will be mad at me for saying this because Gamer is more than a Supergiant main, perhaps a Scarlet Witch main, but I also think she was pretty good here. Like, I have no real complaints about what she was doing. Just if you want to mess around with other things in this slot, I think it would be perfectly acceptable. There's just enough magic running around, though, that I feel like if you're playing a pretty small ball deck, having some tech for that magic stuff actually will be kind of relevant enough to justify the inclusion. Valentina Gambit, I mean, you should know how this one goes. You play the Valentina, you get a 6-drop that costs 4. You play the Gambit, you play the 6-drop. Boom, Gambit's activated. What a beast. Love him. Absolutely phenomenal. That's what's going on here. This is literally just a Valentina to activate Gambit, and frankly, some of the time, the 6-drops you generate are just gonna be good enough. Like, you are very much a deck that is just like, I need tempo, I need tempo, I need tempo. You make a, Hulk out of a Valentina, you feel amazing. You make a Magneto out of a Valentina, you feel amazing. A Hulkling, you feel amazing. You love playing a 410. You're absolutely in love with that. A Helicarrier, you love 410s. You're so in love with that. There's a lot that this card can do. And I think, generally speaking, this is a card that is quite relevant in decks that are able to drag people down. And this is a deck that is able to do that. A lot of other decks don't care about a 410. But if you have a card that can make you a 410 and also turn on your Gambit, that's really important to your ability to drag your opponents to a point output level that you can beat. Rhino is, of course, the rock man, but he's also just a 2-5. That's a pretty good thing to be. Good Iron Patriot follow-up, not the best in the deck. That's Debris, obviously. And Debris is a card that, frankly, frame mogs Rhino in basically every conceivable position. She's just a better card than him at doing everything this deck wants. Her rocks aren't on the same location as her, so you will get to invest more points in that location. Her rocks are also plural, so you get more synergy with the Ozzy. She's way better here, but he's still a functional piece in this deck. This is, of course, Sugi-less Sugi, Supergiant without Supergiant. The goal is to maintain priority and Cosmo stuff. That's what you do. You don't need a Supergiant to do any priority tricks. You just get priority. And that is the same principle as Supergiant, except you don't need to play a 4-6 to execute on it. And that allows us to have maybe a little bit more point output than they do. It also does make our stuff a little less targeted, right? One of the big upsides of Supergiant is you could put things like Cosmo and Negasonic face down on 5 and count on them blowing stuff up, and that can be a really relevant thing. You have to be a lot smarter with your cards that are doing those things. It is a thing that happens a lot more in this deck is you'll like play a Negasonic and then your opponent will just be like, well, I'm not playing in those lanes, and then I'll beat you in the other two. And you'll be like, yep, that wouldn't have happened if I'd had the Supergiant targeting, but here we are. I think Gambit's a pretty key piece to what this deck is trying to do, because Gambit is your Shadow King, kind of, where it's like, you have Gambit in the deck, and then you also have Negasonic in the deck, and then you also have Spider-Ham in the deck, and you also have Cosmo in the deck, and suddenly what you're saying is like, about half the cards you play, opponent, are either not going to exist or not have text. And that's sort of the value prop of the deck. Like, those things all stack on each other. It wouldn't be inappropriate to interpret this deck almost as similar to like the Goon Knight decks, where they're doing things like you're playing Moon Knight and Black Bolt and Killmonger, and it's just like some amount of what your opponent is doing just simply doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. It's in a similar space here, and Gambit is a pretty important part of that. Debris is the GOAT of this archetype, just an absolute monster. 3-8 with upside, you are pretty much never gonna fill your locations at any given time. Like, there are gonna be games where you're like, I don't want to play the Debris, but a lot of the time you're just like, that's free upside for me. I'm very happy with it. The world's greatest Iron Patriot follow-up. She is the absolute queen of winning Iron Patriot lanes, which is really important when you consider how important Iron Patriot output is to your Gambit game plan. She kind of bridges a lot of what this deck is trying to do, brings a lot of things together. The glue of the archetype for sure. Like I said, Sugi-less Sugi, so you still are Negasonicing. I mean, this is a card that is as good as cards can be, I think, in Marvel Snap. Just a really powerful piece of not even tech necessarily, just removal to understand what her role is. She is one of the few cards that can lock up a lane with the same efficiency as a Juggernaut. She's excellent into show loud type things. Again, as long as you can get priority, you can just say that thing you're playing on this location actually doesn't exist. This whole deck has so many things that take away things from decks like that. And surprisingly, she's also a deck that is great against really, really big decks, right? Like, you are very able to do things like against a ramp deck, play a Negasonic if you have priority. They're only playing one card on the final turn of the game. That kind of stuff matters a ton in matchups like this. The Ozzy Man himself feels like almost superfluous, but it's not exactly the same as being superfluous. Again, he's somewhere in the range of Darkhawk and Ronan and them. But I do think that, like, the thing he actually needs is just Debris 2, right? Like, if there was just another 2 or 3 drop that did that kind of thing, like, Herbie is almost it, where you're just like, I feel like I'm so close here, but right now he's like half a card away, because Sandstorm is almost that card, and it might actually be that card, because Sandstorm, again, it's like a really powerful thing if you can actually make it work. But you just run into these scenarios where you're Sandstorming for half value or whatever, and largely Ozzy Man is doing some real work. Like, he's really legitimately helping a lot of your lanes. He's like contributing a bunch of power across the board, and that is actually almost more useful to you than it would be if it was just like one really big Ronan, because he is a big enough body on his own. He does some really meaningful stuff in terms of contribution, but he's just not always going to have the targets you need. And that's the thing you run into with him, where it's like, I feel like the floor on a Ronan is probably just higher, right? You Ronan and you get like one Maximus, and it's like, yeah, all right, this guy's like at least 13, the Maximus is 6, right? It's very unlikely to be much smaller than that. And so you end up with a card that I think with the Ronan stuff just has a higher floor. But I do think that there's probably a higher ceiling on Ozzy Man, because he splits his power, and that means you can be surgical with your point output on the final turns of the game in ways that Ronan does not necessarily allow you to. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been KMBest. You've been phenomenal. I will see you in the next one. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment. And, of course, have a wonderful evening and stick around to watch some gameplay. Cool reason. Unbelievable scenes. Genuinely unbelievable scenes. Quicksilver. Hit a Dragon Lord, all right.
This just in.
Makes sense to me. Jealous of your hairline. Thank you. Who the hell knows what's happening here? Hopefully the white tiger goes mid, I guess. What we're thinking. Pretty reasonable. The white tiger mid gets blown up. Play for 6, goes to the side lanes, don't give a shit what Dracula hits, but we beat it anyway. Exactly.
Victory.
And I will not be happy until I win 8 cubes from here. It's so ass, bro. Interesting. Okay, that's objectively pretty funny. He's gonna change mid. That's fine. I'm really just trying to... Okay, got a Cosmo. Yeah, got multiple, man! Got multiple, man! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Okay, so here's the actual problem. There's like a very real show-lao thing that could happen here. So am I a Gambit nuller? Or am I a Cosmo debrier? Yes. Yes. And frankly, we're lucky we didn't lose more. Frankly, we're lucky we didn't lose more. Holy shit.
Behold my mighty hand.
I don't know, dude. And then debris? Rhino. Okay, acceptable. Gambito doing anything. Love it. Love it. Multiple things can be true. Does Hospice double my rock buffs? Interesting. Compelling. Not a great card there. Hyera. Hyera. Holy. This is why I feel like Sandstorm sucks. Is I need the rocks, but I also need to play Ozzy Man. Oh wait, I fucked that. I'm an idiot. Should have been 5 power rocks. Why didn't... Oh, right, because I correctly Cosmo'd him. Right, I was smart enough to do that. Okay. So this over here is 12. 9. I mean, I could also just say that over there is 10. What do we think about this? Yeah! Ozman on Ozman violence.
Victory.
Like another 2. I would have been like, yeah, we can outpower the Mysterio lane. But unfortunately... How's Rockman? Eh. There are some good hits here. I highly doubt we're going to get them. But there are some good hits here. And then Sab. What we pulling? 3. All right. What we pulling? Sandstorm. Acceptable. Actively enjoyable. Is this just a dub? This looks like a dub. We'll see if it actually is, but I think it's a dub. Pretty awful there.
Clear for takeoff.
I can win this. It's just like I don't know that I want to. I think you win it for the threat. I don't want them to retreat. Exactly the point. Let's go, baby. Let's go, baby. What if it was a bluff snap because they didn't have it? Then they got my ass. Pretty straightforward, unfortunately. What if it was a bluff snap because they didn't have it? Fucking I lose, that's what.
Opponent snapped.
Am I fucked? Maybe. Let's go! I win, right? Surely this is a me winning angle. Surely that's just a me winning angle because it doesn't fucking matter what the fuck else is going on here. They just die. Surely this is just a me winning angle, correct? How could they possibly win from here? What is it that they could do that would beat my ass enough for them to win? Might Cope stay on showing the Angela? Okay, so if they show the Angela, it's Hawkeye. How big is the show? Cosmo mid GG? Yeah, I mean, that is what I'm thinking about. But I could also just play Ozzy left. Okay, we're good. It wasn't like an Ultron off the fucking zero correct stay there. Okay. Noted. Acceptable. No, they got my Ozzy in this game? Holy shit. Fine, we're gonna Prodigy a Gambit or something. Is them playing Loki not a snap condition? Not when they also get my Ozzy, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it is quite bad, actually. Fuck. Okay, this does seem quite good. I mean, I don't really have a choice, right? It just works. Oh my god. Wait, they didn't activate the Prodigy. Yes! Yes! Oh, baby. I did not know that would work that way. I did not know if that would work that way. We're back to 49, baby.